Number 1, let's talk about survival. How to go from Torment 1 to 4, survive in Pit 90s easily, armor, resistance, damage reduction, everything. In Season 9, it seems kind of hard to hit your armor cap and also your resistance cap, especially if you're using quite some mythics, unique items, and you barely have rolls left for total armor tempers or even armor rolls on your gear. The easy solution is walk to your alchemist, then go to the instance tab. Here, defensive instance, you would already get plus 300 armor for 30 minutes. On top of the defensive instance, you can stack the resistance instance. That would give you plus 10 resistance and 2% max resistance. And lastly, we have the core stats. The core stats would give you 100 strength, for example, that would be more armor, or you could take 100 intelligence, that would be more all resistance. However, I would recommend taking the all stats, because if you take all stats, you might be able to activate a rare node on your Paragon board that you were not able to activate before. Let's pop 300 more armor, also the bonus resistance, and also bonus armor. Yes, it does both. And then lastly, we get the all stats. That brings me almost to the resistance cap, almost to the armor cap, and it does last for 30 minutes. If you now want to apply them even easier, hold down your E button for the emote wheel. Bam, the resistances are in there. Press customize, go over to the potions, and you can pull whatever consumable you want inside of that. I choose to put all my 3 resistances in, save changes, and now you simply craft 50 of each, deposit them in your inventory, swap them between characters, and you have for your whole gaming sessions always stuff ready to activate. Now let's check damage reduction and barrier. For this, we're going to pull up our Spiritborn. This character is 5 hours old, just went from 1 to 60 into Torment 3. And I was struggling. I was dying a lot, especially since I played the Razor Plate and I couldn't hit my armor goals before, and my resistances were kind of shoddy. Now, Season 9 has one amazing thing, and that would be the Bottled Wind. Invoke your Catalyst grants a barrier equal to 50% of your maximum life. Cool. So at this point, I can already get 3,500 barrier easily. Problem with that barrier, though, is I can't stack it because it lasts for 4 seconds, and my disintegrate happens every 5.3 seconds. So if I now spam away with my core skill, I have the barrier up, but then the barrier will vanish, and then I have it up, and then it will vanish. And if someone hits me in that time and destroys the barrier, I might actually die. I need another source of barrier, and there is one that is so stupid and easy, it's fantastic. We're talking about the Kui rune. Invoke the Druid's Earthen Bulwark skill for 3 seconds, granting yourself a barrier. Okay, that sounds kind of cool. But it needs 300 offering. How would we get this 300 offering the easiest? That would be our friend the Neo rune. Avoid health damage while fighting for 2 seconds, which would give us 400 offering every 4 seconds. And since the Kui rune has overflow increased duration, you will have a barrier for 4 seconds and then replenish it in 4 seconds and then replenish it in 4 seconds. With this rune combination and the seasonal power, suddenly, instead of losing your barrier completely, we actually have a full globe, more or less, the whole time. Which for the Spiritborn is obviously fantastic because you do 1% increased damage for each 3% of your maximum life you have as barrier. I want to have my 100% barrier on 100% max life. This combination can be used on every character. Might it be your Necro or your Druid? Doesn't matter. Easy survival from Torment 1 onwards. Let's throw an actual eye on damage reduction now. You're most likely dying in the higher Torment tier because you don't have any or not enough sources of damage reduction. The problem with damage reduction is that it doesn't add up. So you're not getting 20% damage reduction and then another 20% damage reduction, so that's 40% damage reduction. What you would expect, you take 10,000 damage and then you have 40% damage reduction. So that damage will be reduced by 4,000 and you would be left with 6,000 damage you're taking. What actually happens is we have 10,000 damage be reduced by 20%, so minus 2,000. That leaves 8,000 damage left over, and that 8,000 damage is then being reduced by 20%, so only 1.6, which means you would actually take 6,400 damage instead of 6,000 damage. Does that mean you shouldn't stack damage reduction? Absolutely not, because 20 of 20 of 20 of 20 is still more than not actually having it. Step number 1 will always be maxing out your armor, because that's 85% damage reduction from physical damage. You would be stupid to not have that. You would be asking to get hit. And then on top, take any form of damage reduction that's convenient for your build. In your skill tree, top right corner, keyword search, damage reduction. Cool. I can get 32% damage reduction while in werebear form, but I don't want to get the 20% reduced damage. That's always active. Fantastic. I don't want to get vigilance because vigilance would not be active all the time. Sure, it would be 15% damage reduction with 3 points. My one skill, though, has 17-second cooldown. I will not be getting this damage reduction regularly. I can't rely on it. When shapeshifting, werebear grants 9% damage reduction and werewolf grants 9% movement speed. Perfect. I'm in my animal form. I have this all the time. And lastly, you get fortify. Increase the amount of fortify you gain, and you gain 3% damage reduction while fortified. Now, you are fortified if you have your life in fortify, if you have this border around your globe. Fortify itself provides you with another 15% damage reduction. And don't forget to check your Paragon boards for these sources as well. I get here 12% damage reduction while fortified, another 3%, another 3% with another 3%. Damn son. Damage reduction from poisoned enemies. My enemies are always poisoned. And just flat damage reduction. All of these are necessary to keep me consistently alive. You should technically try to get away from conditional damage reduction, like damage reduction while unstoppable, unless you're always unstoppable. In my case, I am grizzly raged at any given point. I am always unstoppable. So that 20% damage reduction is just set in stone. With damage reduction while fortified, it can be tricky if you don't play Barrier. Because if you have Barrier up, your fortify usually doesn't deplete and it's permanently active, that damage reduction while fortifying. Otherwise, you're going to take damage and lose your fortify and then rebuild your fortify and get the damage reduction, and it can lead to inconsistencies. And lastly, the most important thing, your maximum life. Because without a good amount of maximum life, all your damage reduction, all your barrier, all these things are useless. If an enemy does too much damage and you would reduce it to 7,000-8,000 damage and you wouldn't have 11,000 life, you still die. For more maximum life, you definitely want to take these big nodes that multiply up to 8%, but don't ignore the 2% nodes in your Paragon board. For Druid, these flat nodes are especially juicy. That's 475 maximum life bonus with 50-50-50 max life. That's crazy, especially since this 475 max life gets then multiplied up by that 8% maximum life node. Do you need 20, 30, 40,000 life like we did in previous seasons? Absolutely not. The only reason we get so much life is because Overpower used to give you more additive bonus with the amount of life and fortify you had. Nowadays, having anything from 10 to 15,000 will feel extremely comfortable. I've tested this now on the Druid, and the sweet spot is around 12,000 life. So I tried to actually drink a big elixir of fortitude to push my life further onwards and make my barrier effects even more efficient, because barrier is always based off maximum life. And for our Necromancer, we're currently sitting at 9,250 with a potion 11,100. You get the drift. Try to get over 10,000 life. Pretty please. Lastly, if you really struggle with survival, go to the Horadric Lapidary and craft yourself the Liminal Echo. If you would take fatal damage, instead prevent that damage, invoke propulsion, and become invulnerable for 3 seconds. This can help until you figured out how to boost your defense meaningful up. Do you have any more questions? Drop them in the comments below. Druid build, Necromancer build, absolute bangers. Enjoy. Have a fantastic good day.